Okay, well, I think just in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And then as different presenters, or not presenters, but people who wanted to participate, in the discussion on a different level, they pop in. But since we've got like a smaller group right now anyway, there's not, a ton going on. So I would say at this point, if you have ideas or suggestions or experiences and you just want to jump in and then have something to say at the end of each question, I will go ahead and stop and ask if anybody did not have a chance to speak yet who wants to say something. Obviously, not everybody's going to have the same interest in or level of expertise in any one of these areas. So, I certainly don't asked to do round robin with every single person, participating, but really anything that you have, to share from your own expertise or insight or questions that you have, we're just going to kind of take it in that respect. Okay. Okay. So, and all we're doing before I kind of get into, I'm going to talk about the people who said that they were going to be involved here, and some of them may have to jump in. Like we said, it's a weird schedule this week. So, but by no means are these the only people talking. Everybody should certainly have something to say here. But I did want to recognize a couple of organizations. The ETA in particular, I believe almost everyone here, if not everyone here, is an ETA member. And considering that it is really okay. You should have seen what happened to my my inbox when I sent this out, and then the responses that I got back. It was a flood of information. It was absolutely incredible. So you guys as a group, I've met with you a number of times, during the month, and there's always so much great information. You guys are such a great collaborative community. So I really, really appreciate everything that you did to make this possible. Lindenwood School of Education gave us the Zoom site, so thank you very much for hosting. And the resources and the webinar, recorded webinar, will be available on Educate STL. So thanks everybody for being here. Erin, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. Hi, I'm Erin Lawson, and I'm the Director of Professional and Program Development in the Orchard Farm School District. And I'm also co-president of ETA. So thank you for the shout out to ETA. Appreciate it.
Yes, and you just recently finished your doctorate, did you not?
I did. I feel like I have so much more time. I can actually read books for fun.
What is that?
I know.
You know what that is? No, that's awesome. We have a number of others, like I said, who are on the list. Did anybody join us since the last time I checked? Who's on the list? No? Okay. So real quick, let's kind of go around real quick for the rest of us who are here. Why don't you just run through real quick and tell me your name, what your job is, and what institution you're with, what school you're with. Anybody can jump in.
Hi, I'm Danielle Tormala. I'm the Associate Superintendent for the St. Charles School District.
Great to have you here.
I'm Jack Dearborn, and I'm the Interim Director of Academic Technology at Principia School.
Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Brandon Brazel. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I'm from Jackson R2. We're expecting inclement weather, so everybody's kind of hustling around picking up children and canceling after school activities, but thanks for putting this together. This is fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. I just spoke with Lance for the podcast last night. He mentioned that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He mentioned you told him you might want to check in on this, so I gave him a plug too, because I know you guys are, but the weather was an unexpected thing too, wasn't it?
You're right. That was not expected.
Yeah. Okay. Who else do we have on the call?
I'm Eddie Cox. I'm with Principia.
Hey, Eddie.
Hi.
I'm Dan Cox from Jackson R2.
I hear it's Dana, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, you were cracking up just a little bit there. Great. Anybody else? Did we get everybody? Okay. I'm going to assume that's a yes, and we'll just go ahead and move forward. So my name is Amy Peach. I am the moderator for this particular forum. I was a faculty member at Lindenwood, and then I left to start Educate STL and podcasts and websites and research and all kinds of fun things like that. And one of the nice things about being in a role like that is that I can be really responsive to whatever anybody needs at the moment. It's really hard, as I mentioned to Lance yesterday, when you're in an organization to respond quickly to something, because quite often there are policies and procedures that need to be in place. And so one of the real benefits to this is being able to respond when there are some issues. And what we noticed, as I mentioned to some of the participants who showed up early, is that some schools are definitely well prepared for this. Some are really kind of struggling. They don't really know what they're going to do. Quite a few still are not, really treating it like it's a hair on fire situation. It may not be, it may turn out to be nothing. That would be the best case scenario, is that they were able to contain it. I mean, by canceling St. Pat's on Saturday, they probably just, left a whole bunch of people out that would have been cross-contaminating. So, I mean, they're taking some steps to try to prevent that, but, anything goes at this point. And so I wanted to lead off our discussion by explaining a couple of quick things. First of all, you want to jump in anytime. There is a chat bar that is available in Zoom. You should be able to see it within your toolbar somewhere. If you aren't able to jump in, and first of all, jump in anytime you want and have a discussion or ask a question of anybody in the group. But if there's something that you want to post in the chat that we can address at the end, then we're certainly happy to do that as well. But just as kind of a disclaimer for this particular webinar, we don't know much of anything at this point. We've got, I think, just a handful, no, I think still under 5 confirmed cases in Missouri. The ones in Illinois are largely in the Chicago area. I'm not even sure if there are any in the Metro East. So we're still really well contained here, but it's, while universities have addressed this sort of emergency, throw everything online in a very short period of time, it's usually due to several days of bad weather. Nothing like what they're dealing with now, 2 to 3 weeks. And it could be longer, and nobody really knows at this point. So there's a lot that we don't know. So if you came here, especially a month from now, 2 months from now, for solid answers, sorry, we don't have any for you. It's really just a collaboration and a discussion around what everybody knows is available, what they know the tools can do, so that in the event that you find it necessary as a district or as a teacher or as another type of educator to move the learning online for the safety of your staff and your students, we can at least break this down into some basic tools that everybody can use. So that's why I wanted to make sure that everybody knows that, because there's been a lot of discussion around if this even should be done, and that's a whole other conversation. So, all right, let's see. So my first question really has to do with the logistical challenges that are here. And for those of you who were on that list and were looking at the questions ahead of time, I'm going to have you guys go ahead and lead in with it if you have, ideas or suggestions or insights to share. And then I'll just kind of open it up for everybody if there are things that we have to say, and we'll just kind of go from that point. So the first question here is just based on logistical challenges. And so as a district, and we've got independent schools here, we've got large public, we've got small public, we've got rural, we've got suburban. I don't know that we have any urban. There are just a lot of different things going on here. And so from the standpoint of the school trying to move ahead, what are some of the challenges that you find in trying to move onto a hurry? And do you have any ideas about how you might overcome them?
Yeah, so in Orchard Farm, I mean, our first thought, we were like, oh, maybe we're okay. We're probably good. I mean, we've got, K-5, we'll have to kind of think about that. But, 6-12, we have Chromebooks, we're one-to-one with Chromebooks for the most part. Most of the kids take them home. We're like, okay, this will be good. This will be good. And then it turned out to be kind of the opposite thing. We found that it was a lot easier for us to design. We were kind of going with 2 weeks, like a 2-week lesson for K-5. We found that to be a lot easier to design some things that would be, that wouldn't have really anything to do with internet access at home for K-5. And then because we have had those Chromebooks for so long at the 6-12 level, that's where we found it to be hard, because we wanted to make things that could work for all kids across the board and if they have internet access at home or not. So then that's where the challenge came in of like, okay, so how do we design 2-week lessons that we could, if we had no internet at all? And so that's what we're working on right now. And actually tomorrow we have a PD day to kind of to sit down and work on some things like that.
Okay. When you, so with the, because I think that was my initial impression as well, that it's easier to think about how this might be done in middle and secondary because there are already a lot of plans, there are a lot of lectures, you know, things like that that can just be easily moved on. And it's like, how do you, I forget who I was talking to the other day, but I was like, how do you replicate circle time, you know, at home with kindergarten, especially if their parents are working? But you find that when you say the elementary is easier, is it just because it's one larger but much bigger project, or?
Yeah, honestly, what we did just to start off, we just created, have you ever seen one of those like kind of tic-tac-toe like activity grids?
Mhm.
And each little box has just a little activity in it. We just created something like that. We created a reading one, we created a math one, and then our specials created one, art, music, and PE. And so in the little boxes, we just put little tiny activities that kids could work on. And then we are emailing that to parents. And then for the kids that might not have email, we're just sending home paper copies of that. And parents can just take a look at that each day and say, okay, kids, you know, pick 2 or 3 activities from each of these grids. And that's what the elementary kids are going to do, basically. And it just was a lot easier to do that for them. And then now, yeah, so now the challenge is working on those secondary kids for sure.
Mhm. Okay. Anybody else? What are some other common challenges that you have
Yeah.
maybe discussed in your school?
Yeah. So anyway, okay. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Yeah. Call anytime.
Is that somebody who's commenting, or anybody else who has anything they'd like to share about discussions and how they've challenged, how they've dealt with this?
In St. Charles, we're kind of similar to Orchard Farm. So for pre-K through 6, we are able to send home basically activity packets for 10 days that have activities to basically maintain our students' level in reading, writing, math, and any other essential learning. And so basically we're going to have those scanned and put on our district's website as well, so parents can access them there. But we have concern at that level because we don't have devices going home with students and we don't know about the internet connectivity at home. So we'll have a packet that will go home with the students here in the next couple of days in the event that we should have to close unexpectedly. For grades 7 through 12, we are 1-to-1. So for us, we are working with those teachers so that they can use Google Classroom or email or some other method to be able to share those essential activities and opportunities for learning while students are away for extended periods of time. So we're in the process, we're in the very beginning stages of getting it all organized and out to staff, and we go on spring break not next week but the week after. So we're kind of hoping that if a closure does happen, it's not imminent in the next few days so that we can really get our plans together so we can move forward.
And that's a really, I think that's probably the hardest part, I would imagine, especially for middle and secondary teachers whose, you know, plans for their content, you know, change on a daily basis. I mean, everybody's does, but it feels like there are ways, you know, as Erin mentioned, to work with elementary kids that follow some general standards, but you have a little bit more flexibility there. But trying to figure out if you're going to close tomorrow or 2 or 3 weeks from now, would, I would imagine, change those plans. I mean, you can't exactly teach the same. You could teach, like, so my background's history, economics, government, and while economics and government, I could have more flexibility there. History is kind of linear. It's taught at least that way, in a very linear fashion. And so if the shutdown happened 2 or 3 weeks from now, we could talk about some general standards that address critical thinking and creativity and things like that, but not really get, much into specific content. It seems like that would not even be in the cards for anybody at this point.
I agree. I mean, honestly, our approach right now is just maintaining learning so that we don't have regression. It's not about new content. It's not about new skills. It's all about being able to practice and maintain where they are so that we don't have huge learning gaps when they come back to school. And so for us, this is not a day of school online. We're pretty far away from that. This is really just about some minimal but essential activities that students can do on a daily basis if we're on an extended closure so that they can continue learning where they are.
And that's a really excellent point, that you're not trying to necessarily move the learning forward. You're just trying to make sure that they don't regress, before that, which is, I would imagine a lot of schools are thinking of it that way as well. Okay, anybody else as far as logistical challenges that you'd like to discuss? Nope. Okay, let's go ahead and move forward then. All right, and this is really just kind of breaking down some of the basic tools that you found in the event that at all levels, with all different kinds of environments, what are some of the things, and because we have so many ETA people here, I think you'd be able to speak to some of these different things, but I'm going to go through some of the more common elements that we find in schools, and then how can you put something similar, to that online to kind of get some of the same effect. I mean, as you pointed out, we're not, trying to necessarily advance things here, but there might be, if you do have something that you actually want to put online, if you want to have some collaboration, how might students do that? And I appreciate you addressing the equity issue, because that's something we definitely want to talk to as well, because that's been a huge concern for a lot of schools where the kids just don't have connectivity. They don't have a lot of access. So we're going to go through just a few of these basic tools, and then we'll kind of talk about some of those bigger issues. So for those of you who are kind of already familiar, or if perhaps you've done this before, if you've done anything related to blended learning or flipped learning, replacing class discussions when you have class discussions, debates, mock trials, a million different, collaborative discussions can happen in a classroom. And so what are some of the tools for how teachers who want to keep that up and want to keep that momentum, how could they do that, in a different environment if they were remote?
I mean, I definitely think, Flipgrid is perfect for that type of thing, because a kid could post and then another kid could respond. And so it could really keep that, that discussion, interactive part, right, just right back and forth like that. And then Google Classroom, if you post an assignment or something like that, you could open up the comments for students to be able to go in there and comment and everything. Yeah, I always think about Flipgrid whenever I think about, that online discussion piece.
Yeah, I always forget about Flipgrid. I know teachers love it. And the learning management systems, I guess Classroom is more of a content management system. We can talk about the nuances and the differences, but they do both have discussions and or comments, when it comes to their different interactive elements. And some of them read more like, it just looks like a bunch of reviews underneath an assignment. Some are actually, woven threaded discussions that students can use. And I think just Google Classroom has that as well, doesn't it? In a minute, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so what, Erin, in your opinion, is, what do you think is better than about Flipgrid? That's the first one that kind of jumped to mind for you.
I think that, because it's not exactly live, on Flipgrid, like some parts of it, so like that if you, that the kids sometimes might feel a little bit better not being completely live right in front of the camera. They might feel better about being able to post their answer to something, kind of take their time with it, and then wait for a response from somebody else. It kind of just gives that little bit of a, kind of a cushion in there for students who might be nervous about just doing kind of a live video or being live right in front of the teacher. And I think actually for the teacher as well, a lot of my teachers, if they, even this right here that we're doing right here, this would make them really nervous to be on a live Zoom call and being able to see each other and all that kind of stuff. That would make them a little nervous. So I think that Flipgrid is really great for that type of discussion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when they're talking about something related to their class, I can see them getting shy in front of video, but I have 2 teenagers. I can assure you they are not shy about video.
Love it.
But it's usually related to TikTok dances, so it's a little bit different, than the branches of government or, calculus.
Well, there you go, Amy. I think you're coming up with something. Maybe kids can create a TikTok video to demonstrate the different parts of the branches of the government, Hey, you never know.
Yes. You know what? This is an opportunity. I mean, one of my rules from a long time ago is never let a good crisis go to waste. I mean, there could be, when everybody's attention is kind of diverted and things are not going the way they normally do, it's a wonderful opportunity to experiment, with things, because it just feels a lot less risky in that environment. So yeah, I would agree with you. Anybody else? Other tools that you think have been useful or helpful for this? Is everybody being polite or shy? I can't tell.
Well, I know here at Orchard Farm, we have Seesaw as well, which is just kind of a way for our teachers to, to post different things, to have kind of a different way of interaction with our parents. And so a lot of our elementary teachers are also talking about ways that they can use Seesaw just to post something, post a video, post a question, something like that, where then the parent will get that on their side on an app and then could then relay that information to their child or show their kid the video through Seesaw or something like that, just to kind of do that kind of discussion for the K-5 level.
Yeah, that's a really
It's similar to Aaron. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
So similar to Aaron, like a lot of districts, we have teachers using a wide variety of resources online for synchronous, asynchronous, discussions or communications. Google Classroom, Google Meet is something, another resource that we have a lot of teachers that are talking about using, in the event of alternate methods of instruction. Then we have teachers, we're rolling out the next couple years, Canvas for our district-wide learning management system, but we do have teachers, hundreds of teachers that use the free version of Schoology or Canvas. So, I mean, we just have a wide variety of resources that our teachers use. So we're, if it comes to AMI, then, we're really, allowing our teachers to choose which platform or resource that they're comfortable using at this time.
Mm-hmm. And it's Rich, right? Is that?
Yes.
Who's talking?
Yes.
Okay. And which district are you in?
Francis Howell.
Francis Howell. Okay. Yeah. Quite a few have Canvas, have adopted Canvas recently. I know a couple still have Schoology. And that's a really great point about synchronous versus asynchronous, because that's a really important distinction. And synchronous is really fun like this. It's ideal, it's wonderful, but districts I find don't often have the tools for it. And then trying to get kids all logged on, on the same time to have those discussions, that's, a whole other challenge that, it's fun and it's worth it. I always, in my online classes, I always do that, but it's a challenge getting everybody on the same page at the same time. So I would imagine that would be good. Yeah, no, it's true. And Canvas, I think kind of to your point too, Aaron, with Seesaw, because that's really kind of, isn't that sort of a portfolio platform, primarily tailored to younger kids, if I recall correctly, right?
Correct.
Yeah, because I've had some graduate students who've done it with like real littles, like kindergarten, first grade, and it was impressive. I mean, I've done, online portfolios I've participated in almost every single one that's available, and none of them are really useful or helpful for little kids. They're all designed for high school, higher ed, and they're all useful. They're wonderful. They're dynamic. You can diagnose almost any academic problem, through them. I mean, the data is just a freaking gold mine. It's amazing. but it just doesn't, it's not user-friendly for those little kids. And when she would show me some of their videos that they would have, oh, they were so cute and they were so proud. And her parents were just ecstatic because they got to see the learning that was going on, with their kids. So that was a really great tool too. Anybody else have any ideas or suggestions about discussions?
We've been talking about Flipgrid as well. Also, there's called VoiceThread, which is a similar product. I think it's mostly meant for voice, not for video, but you can annotate videos in it, which I thought's pretty useful. So that's another option.
I forgot about VoiceThread. I haven't seen anybody use it in a while, and I really don't know. I think I think it used to be free, and then they changed to a freemium platform.
Yep, that's true.
Is that right? Yeah. That was a huge leap forward with threaded discussions, because you could use imagery and videos, and then students could comment either in voice or typing. They could do it in a million different ways. So yeah, that is a really good tool. Forgot about that. I'm going to have to post all these on the site too. Okay, cool. Anybody else before I go on? Okay. Did I go to the right spot? Let's see here. Okay. This is a really hard one. Okay. Labs, hands-on activities. Is this something that I know that there are online science labs? Science in particular was making a lot of headway very early on in the virtual environment, and there were some things they were doing that were really cool. We've all looked at some of the virtual reality tools that you can have in the classroom related to this. There are some good things that are available that are internet-based, cloud-based, but I always kind of, it's never as good as being there, never. Just no, and nobody in online learning would ever say that either. They would never say that this is ever a replacement, for being in the classroom. It's just in situations like this, they kind of look at it as what's better than nothing at all? And that's how they look at these tools. And so, but with labs and hands-on activities, I'm curious what you guys think about whether or not it's even useful for teachers to try to do some of that virtually, or is it just, one of those things that, we're just going to wait until school gets back and do it that way? What are your thoughts?
Honestly, when I saw this question on your slides, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that is a really hard question. It made me think about our art teacher. He does so many hands-on activities and projects with his kids, and I know that he's been already looking at Screencastify, something like that, where he can basically just take the webcam and kind of point it down at a piece of paper and demonstrate how to draw something and have kids try it out when they're at home. If they happen to be home for the next 2 weeks, he could kind of demonstrate how to put together a project or how to draw something using something like Screencastify. I don't know. I mean, I don't know, maybe the biology teacher could do like a cool experiment in front of the camera and then send that out to kids and be like, okay, so what would you predict would happen if I do this or something? I don't know, but you're right. Like that's definitely a hard one, and maybe it would be best to wait until it's over to do some of those more hands-on activities. I don't know. And I guess it depends too on what kind of supplies would the kids need that they might not have at home as well.
Yeah, you don't want them making up chemistry lab experiments in their kitchen. We're going to have a lot.
Exactly.
Because I could see some of them doing that.
Well, they would love making slime.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. That's true.
There might be some things they could do without harming themselves or others. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the lab I would think, demonstrations. And I had this conversation with Rebecca Hare a couple days ago. She's, for those of you who don't know her, she's kind of like known for her learning space design work, but she's also an art teacher. She does a lot with creativity. And she did mention, as far as, because you mentioned art in particular, Adobe is working on all of that right now. So if there's anybody who uses Adobe suites. It's been impressive to see how these companies have really stepped up and thrown out all of their resources. I mean, again, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? There's always a way to get more customers too. But for their existing customers, they're sure to push out resources and information. And I know that Adobe is in the process of working on that. So I feel like maybe for our teachers, there could be some options. But again, what do they have access to at home, and what resources would they need? That's always the big what if.
I think our PE teachers they're feeling pretty good. Say, again, they can use something like Screencastify to kind of demonstrate some different, workouts that the kids can do while at home, and just using like your body weight, jumping jacks, push-ups, things like that. And so, yeah, they're excited about coming up with different activities for that one for sure.
Yeah, that's an interesting. So I started teaching online in 2002. So I mean, if anybody feels like we're struggling with it now, you should have seen what it looked like when we first got started. It was hilarious. But there was a phys ed department when I worked for the Georgia Department of Ed, and I thought, how on earth is that even going to work? And they partnered with a company before Fitbits were even a thing. They were sort of using these as experiments, and they gave them to kids, and they made them track their heart rate doing different things. And it was so funny to see the kids and how much they learned about how just changing your movement or changing your speed or something, how it impacted your heart rate. I guess it had like really good discussions, for all the kids about what it means to be active and what it means to be fit. And that was, the teachers were just so excited. So I can understand why you're sort of thrilled at the idea. What else? Anybody else have ideas, teachers that have been batting around things that they're thinking about in this respect? No? Okay. Yeah, that may be one of those, I think for most teachers, they're just going to have to hang on just in the consideration of resources, safety, things like that. Okay, we've been talking a lot, even early on, about projects, just very basic assessments, just quizzes, tests. Are these things that, so first of all, do you have tools, that you know of that are helpful and useful if they do want to convert paper and pencil quizzes and tests onto another platform? What are the things that, you think they could use that would be helpful? But even more importantly than that, do you think it sounds like it almost like this sort of thing is taking a back seat to a lot of the other activities? I mean, is that what you're finding, or should we even be discussing quizzes and tests?
I think that we'll be using the Google Forms because now they've got ways to do quizzes, tests, other assessments, and they can even grade themselves. So we like that option as well, and so I think that we still will be doing quizzes and tests.
Okay. And Eddie, do you use a learning management system?
Yeah, we're on Blackbaud.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, all of the learning management systems have something in it. They don't all have the same number of responses that students can give for multiple choice or things like they don't always have the same question types. They can be quite different. Google Forms I think what has like 5 or 6 maybe different question types that you can put in there, but some of them more robust ones have, I think the biggest one I saw was a while ago, Blackboard had 17 question types. So I didn't even know there were 17 types of questions that you could put on a test. But even things like they would have these hotspot questions where I could post a map as a question and say, point to where the capital is. And if it got within a certain range of that, I could kind of circle, hey, anything within this range is an acceptable answer. I mean, that, they even had things like that. So it can get pretty fancy, and the analytics, it can be really, really useful. It can tell you exactly, what's going on with the question, if it's the students aren't getting it, or if it's a faulty question, and it can be a million different reasons why it's not working. So even when I tell, like, so if you have Classroom, which Forms I know can integrate with that, and the information can automatically be graded and submitted. Canvas certainly does that. Schoology certainly does that. So for a lot of teachers who still are not putting those kind of just real basic, 10 question quizzes, if they already are one-to-one, they already have a learning management system, I'm not sure why you would continue to do paper and pencil, because you have to grade it every time. And whereas with this, once you put it in there once, you never have to touch it again. It just automatically grades and it's finished. So yeah, so that this could be an opportunity. I mean, I kind of look at this as a sort of sneaky professional development opportunity as well, when teachers sometimes need to be exposed to new ways of doing this. Any other ideas?
This is Brandon from Jackson. Dana and I have been looking at Edulastic quite a bit lately, and that's it's really got some great tests on there. You can actually even filter by Missouri, and you can find the DESE released items. Those are already put into to a test that you can use. There's also EOCs and things like that. So that's a really great tool, and there are just an amazing amount of question types that you can use if you choose to create your own. But they do have question banks, so you could you would need to use the crosswalk for the DESE standards to get the Common Core alignment, because there's not a lot of Missouri Learning Standards on there. But you could take the crosswalk and use Control F, type in the Missouri Learning Standard, and then get the Common Core standard and search their question bank on Edulastic to get questions that would fall within that learning standard. So it's a really great tool.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And that you bring up a good point too about state testing, because that's another kind of unknown at this point. And,
right.
It's like, even if you don't plan on grading quizzes or tests, it might be a good idea to just throw them some practice ones to do.
Right. This is, and it is very map-like. I'm in elementary, so that's why I keep referencing map, but I do know EOCs for the high school group is of interest, but it's got a really pretty awesome teacher dashboard, and it's totally free.
Yeah, that's great. Fantastic. Okay, anybody else?
So Amy, it's Rich again. A lot of districts are familiar with Study Island. I was in a webinar earlier with Edmentum about their support. Like, a lot of companies are reaching out about COVID-19. So I'm not sure if a lot of people know. So Edmentum is actually offering 1 year free access. Now, it's not exactly quiz or test, but there are kind of quiz and tests based around map testing and stuff, but they're offering it free to families and students for 1 year, access to Study Island. So that's kind of a quiz practice map testing, but it also based around the Missouri Learning Standards. So I mean, that's one free resource that a lot of districts use, but has been available again to families. And then they're offering 2 free courses through their Ed Options Academy as well for online learning for K-12 students as well. I'll post the link in the chat if anybody is interested or wants to share that with their families.
Yeah, that would be great. And I have seen a couple of companies that have really stepped up and offered, extended trials or, different things just to try and help everybody out while they're figuring it out. So yeah, it's great that they're doing that.
I haven't gone through the full registration. That link has information, the registration link. It looks like they have to sign up by the end of May. When you go there, it does have a promotion code. One thing that register with an email address. It looks like they have to put a credit card number, but it actually doesn't charge for that, just kind of FYI.
Okay, good to know. Great, thank you. Thanks for that.
Honestly, I love all of these resources anyway, because in my mind, I'm thinking, well, not only do we need to get these out there for Orchard Farm students, but then I'm going to probably have my own 2 kids home with me. If we're home as well, I'm like, okay, I have to think about what I'm going to do with those guys when they are home with me.
Yep. Yeah, I know. I think most people on the call have that situation as well. So, and I think that's something that I didn't put on these slides, but it might be worth discussing towards the end. Are parents going to be able to offer the kind of academic support that you need them to do? Or are they going to feel very intimidated by this? Are they going to feel too busy and overwhelmed? And I'm sure you're going to get different responses out of different parents around all this, but kind of curious if that's a topic, of conversation with schools as well. Everybody's going to need help. Okay, anything else on quizzes and tests? Nope. All right. This we kind of addressed a little bit, so I'm not going to spend too much time because it's sort of related to discussions and collaboration, but any other things that we haven't discussed as far as like group work or collaboration that you've considered?
I mean, I suppose just kind of an easy one would be to put kids into groups with like a Google slide presentation or something and give them some sort of an activity that they have to collaboratively put together using just something like Google Slides, that could just be something that they could do. But again, I keep thinking back to, okay, so what do we do if there are kids that do not have internet access? And that's just, it's like, I'll have this idea of like, oh, this could totally work. And then I think, oh, wait, but not all of our kids will have internet. So then now what do we do? But yeah, Google Slides could be good for that.
One thing that we noticed, because we're planning on trying to leverage Google Meet for either some possible live classes or recording and then posting to students later to view. And one feature there is they do provide Google Meets, and I think that you can also do this with Zoom and other ones as well, but with a phone number, so people can call in if they don't have actual internet access. Potentially they could call in on a cell phone or a landline to actually at least hear the discussion. They wouldn't be able to see any of the visuals, but at least they'd be able to be present and kind of hopefully pick some useful things out of that.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Because almost all of the tools have a dial-in option, even the free ones. So. And Zoom, I know, has a free account. Is it still only 40 minutes, a limit of 40? Does anybody know? It is, yeah, okay. Yeah, different ones. And some of them work better than others, for sure. There's a reason why full accounts at Zoom cost money. I've actually conducted, full-on classes on my phone walking down the sidewalk. Wouldn't recommend it. Could have walked right into a pole, never would have known, but it works anywhere, anytime. It was so easy to use. But with the equity piece, I think some schools have to deal with it much more directly, certainly, than others. And it's not even always just an economic issue. Sometimes it's just a flat out access issue. They may be in a real dead zone. They may really struggle with, just general access to the internet. It's so different in so many different places. And some of these tools, they require some horsepower, and they may not always have, access to those things. And so I know some districts early on, and I don't know if this is still being done, but to try to address digital equity, they were talking about checking out hotspots to students from the library before they left. I know that was a really common thing. One district, I believe, actually had like a wired up bus that would go to a public area and allow people to log in. A lot of districts partner with public libraries on things like this where they can offer access. Of course, if the libraries are open, that's always the question, is what is actually going to be open and available. There's a lot of what ifs there, but it might be worthwhile to dig into that a little bit more, because this is a discussion years ago, when everybody started going one-to-one, and we started talking about blended and flipped and flexible learning, and it all hinged on access at home. And so for districts that wanted to go that route, they had to solve that problem for all of their kids. And so I can think of a graduate student I had who did a lot of research on this. I may have to reach out to her and see what she found, if there's anything new or new ideas. Has anybody had to address that, just non-COVID-19 related, that they have found a solution for?
I mean, we've definitely been thinking about it for sure. We we heard about like the hotspots thing, and so we've been looking into providing the that to be checked out from our library as well. We haven't done that yet, but we're looking into it. I mean, right now, our students know that the minute that they pull onto our main campus, or if they are in our parking lot at Discovery Elementary, which is kind of like 8 minutes away from our main campus, that they can immediately connect to our internet. So they really could sit in the parking lot and be connected to our internet. And so that's been helpful for now, but we definitely want to go a little deeper than that for sure.
Yeah.
And in St. Charles, we do have the hotspot checkout. Since we're 1-to-1 from grade 7 to 12, we do have those that are available through our libraries. And right now we're surveying our staff and our students to see who needs them for this possible school closure.
Yeah, Francis, how we did the same thing. There's no cases, no immediate plans to close any schools. Starting tomorrow next week is our spring break. So that's kind of a pause for us. Yet families will be traveling, so who knows? So we did pull all of our secondary students issued devices that didn't have them. We have a good chunk of hotspots. We did the same thing, but not enough for all of our students. We had about 300 students at the secondary level that identified that they did not have internet access, and we had about 80 hotspots that we could check out. So the demand was greater than our limited resources, unfortunately, at this time.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of makes me wonder if, for all these companies that are stepping up, if they're, some of these telecom companies or the state government or, other groups can step in and say, this is an emergency. We're going to offer, some hotspots to schools to help out with this problem.
Yeah, and that's a good point. One of our vendors and current vendors, potential vendors, I reached out to them. They're getting, just emergency purchases, and I know that their stock, not to cause a rush on hotspots, but their stock is starting to dwindle. Not that it's down to zero, but earlier one company, T-Mobile, said we had 32,000 in the country. Now it's down to 25,000. So I was talking with them. I don't know. I haven't found a telecom company that would provide emergency access for free. About the cheapest that I found was T-Mobile, that does with a 2-year contract about $10 a month per hotspot.
Okay.
So we are having some discussions like, do we need to try to get some more at this time?
Yeah. Well, that's good. And it's an opportunity, I think, for some of these companies as they, are already getting a lot of business. And if you already have a really good relationship, with them, this could be an opportunity for them to kind of step up and say, maybe you'll give it to us. So
Yeah.
Always room for negotiation.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other solutions besides hotspot? And it's interesting that they're down by 10,000 already. I mean, that's pretty startling. And I think you guys bring up a good point too about spring break and traveling. My daughters go to Maplewood Richmond Heights, and I was talking to the principal just yesterday. I said, I don't know if spring break is well timed or not. Like if it's good that they're taking a break from each other, but if they're going to visit grandma in Seattle, that could prove to be a real problem when they come back. Okay. All right. Anything else on group work or collaboration? Oops, sorry, I jumped back.
You know what? It just has to do with the word collaboration. I already knew that Francis Howell and the St. Charles School District, they sent out those surveys because all of our districts have all been collaborating and passing information to each other. And like, here's the letter we sent to our teachers, or here's what we're going to require for this. And here's what we sent to our parents. And I think this entire thing has been just really cool to see how all of our districts and how we are all like pulling together to share all of our resources and not only here just in the St. Louis area or also Missouri, but I was reading an article yesterday on like Journal News, and it mentioned a lady that works for Mason, Ohio schools, and she was talking about these instructional protocols that she created for this coronavirus thing. And so I actually just emailed her, and she sent me all of her stuff that she sent out to her teachers. So that's just been a really kind of an interesting thing just to kind of see all the collaboration that we've all been doing as adults between each other for this.
Yeah, that's a really good point because I remember a superintendent telling me years ago that uh, he was fairly new to the area and he did not understand the competitiveness that seems to occur between districts at his level. Like, it kind of really took him by surprise. He said, we're not competitors, so why are we acting, like we're competitors here? And so and I thought, I never really thought about it, but, maybe I said I wouldn't know. I'm not at that level, so I haven't really seen it. But it's funny how times of crisis and, everybody's just trying to get it sorted out and figured out. It's a lot of people are not definitely not being stingy about it. They're giving you whatever is going to be helpful. I think the next challenge, though, is being inundated with resources and trying to sort through what you need and figuring out priorities when those priorities shift day to day. That can be the real challenge with the flood of information as well. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and just wrap up with a couple of things that I've written down, and then I'll kind of open this up for discussion. I'll take a look at the chat here and see if there are any questions that I missed. But just in kind of for a lot of districts, just from my experience and getting started here, and like I said, I started in online learning at the secondary level in 2002, and I've done it at almost every level since that time, and a lot of changes, a lot of different systems, a lot of information. And I worked in K-12 for a long time too. I've then been in schools of ed, for a while. And so when these things happen to us, and you've probably seen like all of the universities, they are just falling like dominoes in the St. Louis area because there's no reason for them not to, for them, when I saw the first two were, what was it, Maryville and SLU. Is that right? Yeah, Maryville and SLU. And that didn't surprise me at all because they have some of the strongest instructional design teams in the area. And I'm sure that they were well prepared for this long time ago before they even knew that this was happening. So it was interesting to see how that happened, but how quickly it can happen. We've talked about trying to plan and everything. And for some of these schools, this could happen within 24 to 48 hours. At Lindenwood, we were told on, what is today? Thursday. So we were told on Tuesday, we don't expect to close, but here's, any event that you need to get online in a hurry, here's an article from the Chronicle of Higher Education. I'm like, great, thank you. It's super helpful for me to get my courses on there. It's just kind of a general guide. And then less than 24 hours later, hey, we're shutting down. You got to move all your stuff online now. And it's like, so faculty are just completely overwhelmed and they don't know what to do. So number one, if you guys are already having this discussion with your teachers, you are way ahead of the game. That's wonderful. Just, even telling them that this is a possibility. So just be thinking kind of in the back of your head what this is going to look like, because there's nothing worse than being slammed with that in the face and all of a sudden feeling panicked and not knowing exactly what you're supposed to do. And so from the experience that I've had just in having to shut down for a few days because of weather, I always tell people avoid overwhelm and this all or nothing thinking. It can be so, just in sorting through the resources that people have been so generous in sharing with me, and I posted it on the website, but I couldn't just throw it all in there. I had to try to figure out how to categorize it and what's really important, what do people need, what do people not need, because if I put everything on there, then it's just going to feel like, oh my God, there's so many things going on here. I will never get to it all. And then that results, have you ever experienced this where it's all of a sudden like, well, forget it. It's too much. I'm just going to tell them to read a book for 2 weeks and not do it. And so I've seen that happen over and over and over again. So just really thinking about prioritizing your tasks, especially for any teachers who might be listening to the recording, just pay attention to really what is it that you ultimately want them to get. And we talked about a lot of really great things here about making, those priorities. And then don't lose steps. Don't lose sleep over the missteps. It's going to happen. And teachers have this really terrible habit of, because we're trained that way, it's learning how to plan out every minute of a lesson. I mean, think about when you first learned how to be a teacher. It was, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here, and then I'm going to do this, I'm going to get all this done. And while you can be adaptive in a classroom, it still like really eats at teachers when they don't get everything that they want done. And that can be incredibly frustrating. And so I always tell them, especially advice for anybody who's listening, after this, just, you're going to screw it up. I'll just like spoiler alert, you're not going to get the things done that you want to get done. That's okay. Just make your priorities and you should be okay. We talked a lot about equity and access issues. So just always think about that as a teacher. Try to be aware of what's going on with your students and what they need. Really don't lose your sense of humor. I have seen tensions get really, really high in situations like this over really dumb things, you know, and it ends up being it's technology mishap or leaders who have really, really, really inflexible rules. And I would hope that most leaders would not be like that, but you'd be surprised. They like want to convert everything as it was directly onto this environment, and everybody has to follow the rules, period, at the end. And it's not always going to work. So, you know, really same rules as everything else. You know, if an email is driving me crazy, my colleague always knows it because I'm on my phone playing a game, so I don't respond right away. So just don't lose your sense of humor in all this, because it's going to the parents are going to be stressed and upset. The kids are going to be confused. You know, there's a lot going on. So just try to keep your sense of humor is the best thing I can tell you that I always have to do in situations like that. And then, like I mentioned before, don't let a good crisis go to waste. I mean, this is an opportunity for strategies and ideas that you may not have explored before. The first time I encountered this, and I talk about this story all the time, so if you heard it, I apologize. But I first learned this during September 11th because we were just completely confused and shocked and didn't know what to do. And I was teaching geography at the time, and the very next day, I decided that I looked at my calendar and realized the Middle East was my next unit. And I said, oh, well, I mean, we're not drawing maps, I can tell you that. And so I gave him 2 weeks to research, and I said, you need to explain why this happened. That's your only job. And it forever framed the way that I think about personalized learning, about kids' aptitudes. These were the troubled kids, you know, the ones that didn't have great skills. That's why they were in geography. It was ridiculous. The ideas that they came up with and their reasoning and their logic was absolutely overwhelming as an educator. And so for a lot of these things, I mean, do you kind of try to move forward with the same plan, or do you, you know, take advantage of it and maybe try something related to Genius Hour, or, you know, try a new project that you've been wanting to do, but you felt confined by your schedule and the restraints of your school? This might be a really great time to give it a shot. As long as everybody is, you know, kind of okay with it, then it might be a good time for it. Guys, what other tips would you have, you know, for, it doesn't matter who it is, teachers, admins, anybody else that, you know, you think they should consider going forward?
No, I love your, you know, don't let a good crisis go to waste with the new strategies. I mean, those were some of the things that we found ourselves when we were talking about lessons that we could create that could be done at home, that would not stress the parents out, that, you know, wouldn't require, you know, internet access. I mean, you know, we were trying to think through those kind of things. And we were, you know, just trying to come up with ideas of like, okay, like an art lesson, of like a recycled art lesson. You know, kids could find items around their home and then try to create a piece of art and then write a journal entry about their creation process and things like that. And so we were just really trying to think through like what could be some kind of cool things that could happen. That you're right, that sometimes you just don't have time to do those kind of things in your regular curriculum or, you know, regular days. So it's kind of a neat opportunity.
Yeah. Anybody else have other ideas, suggestions, tips you think everybody should know? No? All good? Okay. I guess we'll know later on. Let me see if I can find the chat room. For some reason, my chat is not showing up. Can you guys see your chat?
Mm-hmm.
You can. I'm not sure why I can't. Okay, let me see if I can try one more time in another section. So I'll be sure to post this out to everybody as well. But this is a site where the recording of the webinar is going to be, all the other resources that were there. I can show you just really quick a couple of basic things that are kind of helpful there. Let me move my space over here. And yes, I am that person who has like everything, 5,000 tabs and everything. Oh, here's the chat. Okay, it was just behind here. All right, so let's see here. So I can see. All right. So just to kind of give you a general idea of what's here in the event that you need it, these are online design resources based on just a couple of the different topics that we've had. These are just, I'm just pulling together some YouTube playlists that are related to things like this because everybody's on different systems, everybody has access to different tools, and so it might just be an opportunity for someone to find something that they need. Google resources, oh, looks like I have not published the site since I updated it, but I have all those. I'll update that as soon as I get off the call. But the Google resources, they've done a whole bunch on this. They have recorded webinars. They've got access to all of their tools and all the information. They've got a really great blog that's run on how to, sort of move your things onto their platforms, during times of crisis. So their stuff has been really, really good. I know I've got other, I've got other METC sent along a form, which you guys probably already have access to, but it's all the different schools and policies and procedures, things that people have tried to get more information there. So if you have, you will be able to see at the bottom of the page. In this, again, this site's going to be updated just as I keep getting more information. So if you have recommendations, I will take everything that you guys have said here and put in the chat, and I'll be sure to include that as well. But if you think of other things later that you think should be included, just go ahead and fill out this quick form at the bottom here, and I'll be sure to get it up there. All right, let me see if there was any quick questions from the chat.